Let's talk about plural forms. It's a subject that a lot of students can get tripped up on. Even those of you who think that you're pretty familiar with this, you could probably do with a refresher. Most plural forms of nouns are created simply by adding an S to the end of them. It makes sense. We do this all the time. Snake becomes snakes. Ski becomes skis, with just an S at the end. Barrymore becomes Barrymores, just with the S at the end. Words that end in CH, X, S, or S-like sounds, however, will require an ES for the plural. So we have which becomes witches with the ES, box becomes boxes, Jones becomes Joneses. I know that looks a little funny, but that's actually the correct plural form of the family name Jones. So if you went to the if you went to visit the Joneses, you'd have to spell it like that, or else it'd be misspelled. There are several nouns in English that have irregular plural forms. What that means, irregular in grammar, means that it does not follow a normal spelling or grammar rule. That's what irregular means. For instance, child, plural form of that is children. We don't just add the S or anything like that to child, childs. We say children. Person becomes people. Deer, and the plural for deer is just deer. That's still considered irregular because it's not the conventional way of just adding an S. There are also nouns in the English language that maintain their Latin or Greek form in the plural. You know, a lot of the words that we use come from Latin or Greek influences on our language. A lot of those still just retain their same Latin or Greek plural forms. Syllabus, okay, becomes syllabi. It's the Latin plural for syllabus. Focus, foci. Thesis becomes theses. Phenomenon becomes phenomena. Appendix is appendices. Criterion, the plural of that is criteria. And so these are, again, irregular plural forms for English because they retain their original Latin or Greek forms. With words that end in a consonant and a Y, you'll need to change the Y to an I and add ES. Baby becomes babies. Reality becomes realities. Galley becomes galleys. Notice that galley does not end in a consonant in a Y. It's a vowel in a Y. It's EY. And so it just takes the S. You don't change the Y to an I. You just keep the Y there. This is one that I've seen students really start to screw up on a lot. Maybe it's just this millennial age of becoming relaxed in our proper spelling conventions, that sort of thing. But I see a lot of students who spell babies B-A-B-Y-S for some reason, that sort of thing. That's wrong, so we need to correct that. Yeah. One final thing, the Y plural rule does not apply to proper nouns. So the name O'Reilly, for instance, it's a consonant with a Y ending in the singular. So normally you'd change the Y to an I and add ES. But since it's a name, it's a proper noun, we just add the S like we would with galleys here. Okay, so O'Reilly's, just stick an S on the end of it because we don't want to. We would otherwise be changing the spelling of their name, which just feels weird. Next up, words that end in O take either an S or ES unless that O is preceded by another vowel, in which case it's just an S. I'll give you a minute to write that one down and think about it for a second. Potato becomes potatoes. Cello becomes cellos. So here we go. So this is an example of irregular forms that you just have to memorize. However, we have a concrete rule for words ending in O preceded immediately by another vowel. Those will always just be S. So if the singular ends in an O, you're either going to add the S or the ES. You'll just have to look it up in the dictionary. But if it ends in a vowel plus the O, then you know it's always just going to be S. Plurals of words that end in F or FE usually change the F sound to a V sound and add S or ES. So knife becomes knives, leaf becomes leaves, hoof becomes hooves. Plural forms can be tricky. That's the bottom line I want to leave you with here. And you're not expected to memorize every irregular plural form there is. You need to sometimes use a dictionary when you're not sure. But for simple words like the ones that I've covered here, yeah, those are the ones that you're going to need to know how to spell on site, because those are the kind of things that you would have to know on exams, or I'd expect you to know how to spell properly in an essay. Lastly, plurals and apostrophes. Apostrophes are only used to create plurals in two limited situations. When you have pluralized letter of the alphabet, as in I made straight A's last 6 weeks, or plural form of a word that refers to the word itself. You have 15 ands in that last paragraph. These are the only two instances where a noun, a substantive, is made plural using an apostrophe s. Otherwise, the apostrophe is reserved for possessive forms, which we'll get into later. Please note that when you're making the plural form of a word referring to a word itself, as in that sentence you have 15 ands in that last paragraph, in addition to using the apostrophe s ending, you also need to italicize the word, or if you're handwriting, you need to underline the word. Do not use an apostrophe to make plural abbreviations of numbers. RBI, the plural for RBI is RBIS. That's it. You don't do the apostrophe, otherwise that'd make it possessive. POWs, okay, is correct. 1960s is correct. 1800s, that's the correct form of that. And all of this, these plural forms, these proper plural forms, and the rules on using plurals and apostrophes, that is our first SAT, ACT skill. Go ahead and mark that down in your notebook. And let's go ahead and complete the next exercise over using proper plural forms and applying the rule I just mentioned over plurals and apostrophes.